To start things off, let me introduce myself. My name's Ben Rivers. Everyone just calls me Rivers. I work at a small horror movie distribution company based out of a half-forgotten industrial block just outside Boston. It's the kind of place where the walls are yellowed from cigarette smoke and the air smells like burnt coffee. My job title sounds better than it really is: archivist. What that actually means is, I sit in a freezing back room all day, watching low-budget horror movies on VHS and writing down notes about which ones are worth converting to tape for release. Most aren't. Honestly, I only took this gig because I used to make my own horror shorts back in college. Thought maybe if I worked close enough to the industry, I could sneak my own name into the mix one day. You know, maybe one night someone at a studio party would say, "Hey, Rivers, you ever thought about directing?" So far, that hasn't happened. Instead, I spend my days babysitting boxes of forgotten films and night after night reading thank you but no rejection letters for my own scripts. Guess I'm just another wannabe horror writer doomed to fade behind the curtain. Anyway, this one Monday morning, after getting my latest script rejected, something about the pacing being too slow, I sat down at my desk to start another day of cinematic torture. I'd just finished fast-forwarding through a vampire flick that somehow managed to make vampires boring when I found an unlabeled tape near the bottom of the delivery crate. No studio logo, no print number, just a piece of masking tape across the front with the words, "Property of Silvergate Films. Do not duplicate," scribbled in red marker. I figured maybe it was an unfinished project or some director's cut that never made it to shelves. The footage began with static, that warped white fuzz that flickers just before a tracking bar slides down the screen. Then an image faded in, a group of kids sitting around a campfire. One of them held a handheld camera, the kind that recorded straight to VHS. You could see their faces clearly. And that's when I froze. Because the guy holding the camera, the one laughing the loudest, was my old best friend from high school, Landon Ackerley. We hadn't spoken in years. At first, I thought maybe it was just a coincidence, some random kid who looked like him. But then, one of the others shouted, "Come on, Landon, tell the story." And that's when I knew. It was him, same voice, same stupid grin. The rest of the footage played like one of those student projects we used to make, only darker. The kids talked about a local legend, something about the hollow woods out by the reservoir. But then the tape glitched. The screen warped. For a second, I swear I saw something standing behind them in the trees. Something tall, pale, and still. When the image cleared, one of the kids was gone. I thought maybe it was part of the movie, a scare effect. But the panic in their voices didn't sound scripted. They weren't acting. That night, I took the tape home with me. I told myself it was because I wanted to study the cinematography, maybe find the filmmaker and credit them properly. Truth is, I just wanted to see Landon again. I watched it twice, then 3 times. Each time, something new flickered in the background. Shapes, whispers, faces I hadn't noticed before. On the 4th viewing, the tape cut to static again. Then a new image appeared, something that hadn't been there before. A single frame of Landon, older now, staring straight into the camera. He was in a dark room. His mouth moved like he was whispering, but no sound came out. And then came the worst part. The timestamp in the corner read, October 31st, 1998, 11:48 p.m. That was tomorrow night. I paused the tape. The timestamp blinked at the bottom of the screen. October 31st, 1998, 11:48 p.m. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd misread it, or that it was part of the film. But the thing is, none of the footage had timestamps before. Not one. I sat there staring at the screen, my apartment bathed in that blue glow from the TV. My heart was hammering, and for the first time in years, I felt properly scared. The kind of scared you feel when you're a kid, home alone, and every sound in the house sounds wrong. I rewound the tape a few seconds, hit play again. There it was. The same frame. Landon older. The room around him dark and grainy, walls covered in peeling paint. His face was ghost pale, and his eyes didn't blink. I hit pause again. The timestamp didn't change. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking, what if this wasn't a coincidence? By morning, I'd convinced myself it had to be some kind of hoax. Maybe Landon or one of our old friends was messing with me. He was always the prankster, the kind of guy who'd sneak into your locker at school just to switch your lunch with a rubber hand. So, I decided to find him, prove this whole thing was some weird art project that somehow ended up at the studio. The trouble was, I hadn't spoken to Landon since '92, and back then, nobody had a website or an email address you could look up. My old address book didn't have his number anymore, just a scribble that said, "Call from payphone." That left one option: the library. I drove across town and flipped through the local directories. You know, those thick white books that smell like dust and regret. Nothing under Ackerley Landon, not in Boston, not in Plymouth County. Then I remembered something. Back in college, Landon and I shot our first short film together, Midnight Lake. We kept our production notes in an old binder. I dug through my storage boxes that night until I found it, and there, on the inside cover, was an address written in pencil. Ackerley Residence, 14 Crescent Road, Maple Hollow. I stared at it for a long time. The next afternoon, I drove 3 hours out of the city to Maple Hollow, the kind of town that still had a video rental store and a diner with cigarette burns in every booth. By the time I got there, the sun was dipping low, that strange orange hour when everything looks a little unreal. The Ackerley's house sat at the end of a gravel road, paint peeling, porch light flickering, no car in the drive. The mailbox was open, stuffed with damp flyers and grocery ads from who knows when. I walked up and knocked on the door. No answer. I was about to turn back when I noticed something taped to the front door. A small strip of masking tape, the kind we used to label VHS cassettes. Scrawled in red marker were the words, "Don't watch it again." I froze. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Then, from the upstairs window, I swear I saw the curtain shift, just slightly, like someone was watching me. Landon? For a second, nothing. Then I heard a click from inside, like a door unlocking, and a faint voice, hoarse and trembling. "Rivers, you shouldn't have played it." The door creaked open another inch. My pulse kicked up. "Landon?" Something moved behind the door, a shuffle, quick and uneven, like bare feet on wood. The next second, the door flung open so hard it banged against the wall. Landon stood there. At least, I thought it was him. He was thinner, his skin waxy under the porch light, and his eyes looked like they hadn't closed in days. "Jesus, man," I started, but he lunged. Cold hands gripped my jacket, slamming me into the doorframe. His breath reeked of something chemical, like old film stock and rot. "Why'd you watch it, Rivers?" he hissed. His voice was cracked and dry, like he'd forgotten how to speak. "You weren't supposed to see it again." He shoved me back hard. I stumbled down the steps, my elbow scraping the railing. Inside the house, the only light came from the living room TV, flickering white static that pulsed across the walls like lightning. Landon stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the glow. "It records everything it sees," he muttered. "It saw you." "Landon, what the hell are you talking about?" He didn't answer. He just turned toward the living room TV. The static shifted, slow at first, then forming shapes. 2 figures. One of them was me, standing exactly where I was now, on the porch. "Get out," he told me. His voice dropped to a whisper. Before it finishes, the screen flickered again, and in that grainy mess of static, I saw myself die. The door slammed shut behind me. I spun, yanking the handle, locked, deadbolt, chain, everything. "Landon?" No answer. The only light came from that old box TV in the living room, the blue flicker bleeding through the doorway like smoke. I tried the front window, painted shut. The back door? Same. Every handle I touched rattled, but none turned. The air inside felt heavy, like the house itself was holding its breath. Then I heard the whir, that low, mechanical clack-whir click that only a VCR makes when it rewinds. "Landon, where are you?" Something moved in the living room, slow, dragging footsteps. I crept forward. The TV showed static at first, Then a freeze frame of the porch, Landon's porch. I could see myself standing there from minutes ago, knocking on the door. Then the image flickered, and my recorded self turned his head toward the camera. I stopped breathing. From somewhere behind me, I heard Landon. "You shouldn't have watched it." The VHS doesn't just show death, it creates it. When you appear in it, your ending gets final cut. Every time someone watches it, it records them and uses their image to replace its previous subject. I learned this too late, man. His eyes were rolled almost white. His skin looked burned, like the static had crawled under it. "Landon, what is this?" I said. "What's happening?" He shook his head slowly. "It edits things, Ben. It edits us." The TV crackled. A new scene appeared. Me, standing right here, in the same room, talking to Landon. Then the tape skipped, and my recorded self was gone. Landon looked past me, eyes wide. "It's cutting you in," he whispered. I ran toward the door again, clawing at the lock. It wouldn't move. My reflection in the TV screen twitched, a frame ahead of my real movements. "Landon, open it! God damn it!" he just whispered. "You can't. You're already inside the reel." The VCR clicked. Something behind me started to record. Landon's breathing grew rough, shallow, like he was fighting the air itself. The TV flickered again. Now it showed both of us, me facing him facing me. Only the version on screen moved differently, out of sync. Like the tape was rehearsing our conversation a few seconds ahead. I said, "We can shut it off." But on the screen, my other self shook his head. Landon's voice cracked. "You can't stop it. Once it starts recording, it needs an ending." The television's glow swelled until the static filled the whole room, lighting the walls in pulsing white. Every object began to blur, edges stretching like melting film. I took a step toward the VCR, but the floor seemed to slide under me. Landon grabbed my arm, his grip icy and desperate. "Don't let it finish your reel," he gasped. "Please." His voice cut out. The screen stuttered, then froze on a single frame. Landon, mouth open mid-word, eyes hollow. The next frame was empty. He was gone. "Landon!" The light faded from the room, leaving only the VCR's red record light burning like a tiny eye. I could feel it watching me. I looked down. The camcorder was on the floor, its lens pointed straight at my chest. The red light blinked. REC. I lunged for it, but my hands passed through the body of the camera like it wasn't solid anymore. On the TV, new text. Final cut complete then, underneath it, my name, Ben Rivers. The letters froze. Then the screen jittered, glitched, and a new prompt appeared beneath my name. Play next? The cursor blinked. Once. Twice. Then, from somewhere inside the static, I heard my own voice, calm, distorted, like it was coming from the other side of a phone line. "You wanted an ending, so I gave you mine." The television went dark. The hum stopped. But in the reflection of the blank screen, my face was still moving, smiling.